Welcome back to the channel. My name is Robert, and today on the Project Nomad I'd like to do something really quick, and it is talk about this bumper that we have here. And it's been the bumper that, or the project that I've been working on for the past week or week and a half, and kind of the main reason why I haven't been posting up on YouTube regularly, because I kind of need to get work on this bumper, and I'll explain why it took me a little bit longer. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due. This is technically a NorthWest Trail Innovations front bumper. However, it is not a NorthWest Trail Innovations front bumper. It is a copy of it, and it is moderately modified from their design. The reason for it is because I had a friend order up his bumper. He asked me to weld it up. I asked him, hey, instead of asking for money, let me make a stencil out of it. It'll take longer for me to make your bumper, but I'll have a stencil of the bumper and I can make my own from there. And he said, cool, okay. And here is the bumper from that copy. Some of the material differences are apparent. The center section and the verticals here, at least the top center section and the verticals here, were made of a thicker material than 3/16. The bulk of the bumper was actually made of 3/16. So just as a disclaimer, the center section, the verticals were thicker. The verticals, I believe, were a 1/4 inch thick. The center section was 3/8. There weren't as many circular holes throughout the entire structure. However, the front had more air gaps in total though. And they also did have their logo right here. Again, giving credit to where credit is due. This is mostly based off of the NorthWest Trail Innovations design. I just literally made a copy. The circles here are actually dimple dyed so that these do give rigidity to the front face of the bumper, and you'll see that as a running theme through the center section. I did add a ton of holes, and I dimple dyed all of them so that it is as rigid as possible. The hole sections here are the openings for the winch mounts right there and right here as well. So those are the openings for the winch mount holes, so you can get to the bolts easily. Again, I added dimple dyes as where I can, just to give it more rigidity. That is the bulk of the modifications. The only other modifications I did add were I added mounting tabs for lights up here. Not tabs, holes for lights up here. I do plan on running lights here eventually. I don't know if I'm gonna keep this bumper on permanently or just have it on at different points, but I added a 3/8 hole right here so I can accommodate most Amazon lights and light mounts or any other high-end lights, but I just have them here. Other modification I did add was the wings do actually have a cutout for the AC bottle condenser right around here on the driver's side. What I ended up doing was just going to the pinnacle of the curved section of that cutout and just making it into 2 straight lines so that it was easier to cut out. Other than that, I guess the verticals, there are holes here to, I think, access the bolts, but it's actually pretty easy to access the bolts from underneath down here. And to be fair, I also don't have the bolts mounted onto the bumper yet. I just had the bumper finished drying from the bed liner, so I just mounted it up to see how it looks on my 80. I've seen it on my buddy's 80 who doesn't have flares, and it is white. It still looks good on both flared and non-flared 80s, and the bumper wing does flow right underneath the 80s flares almost seamlessly. So the corner here is actually pretty protected. It is pretty much boxed in all the way, so it is pretty stout on this side. And personally, I do like how it does flow underneath the flares, but if you're running without flares and just want it a little bit stubbier, I think you could cut right here or even cut it further down and make it more stubby. But I just wanted to copy the design as faithfully as possible to NorthWest Trail Innovations. I mean, I do have differences, but I wanted to keep as much of the faithful design as possible just to see how it looks. But you honestly could just cut it here and make it more bobbed if you really wanted to. And NorthWest Trail Innovations does provide a provision for a hoop, but my friend didn't order it, and I have an ARB bumper already. I know what a giant hoop looks like on my 80. This is basically the entire bumper ready to go on an 80. I will also have to say that you do need to install the winch onto the bumper before installing the bumper itself, mainly because the front valence here and the front of the lip don't give you much room to actually put your bumper in, or I mean put your winch in when the bumper is mounted, albeit you could risk it and pull it out ever so slightly so you can sneak it in, but I don't believe you have enough room to actually put your winch control box in here, so you will have to relocate it somewhere else. But again, it's not that hard to do, and just follow your winch manufacturer's instructions and you should be able to relocate it easily. This is the NorthWest Trail Innovations front bumper. It is really high clearance. You can see my 1-ton steering more clearly underneath. Honestly, if I wanted a low profile bumper, I think I would go with this, because it really is the same or nearly the same profile as the OEM front bumper, and I know a lot of people want to keep it as plain looking even though we're large off-roaders. I think this is a really good bumper for that kind of a setup, especially if you're not going to go hardcore wheeling where you're going to be winching or being yanked in a lot of different places. And that's kind of why I also kept the winch, or no, not the winch, the recovery point sections off of this version of the bumper, just because I didn't want the possibility of me or someone who's trying to pull me out using that. It's stout. My problem is I don't know how much tension or how many times I can repeat that kind of a pull on a DIY bumper. Even on the ARB bumper, I don't use any of the recovery points on any of the ARB bumpers we have, mainly because I don't feel comfortable using non-frame attached recovery points. Normally I have Ironman 4x4 recovery points on the frame, so I never have to pull anywhere else. So that's where I would go from, and that's where I'm gonna keep it. That's why I don't have the provision right here. The other portion that I didn't like was that it's not completely boxed on the frame horns, so there is a possibility that this thing can twist or bend away from the frame ever so slightly. Because if you're doing heavy duty winching on bumpers, I would prefer the frame section that it's mounted to be completely boxed in, if you can see right there, because it's just slotted in there, and even the top slot isn't going all the way to the front face of the bumper. It's slotted in, but I just don't know how strong that's going to be long term, and especially if you do a lot of heavy wheeling. But if you're going to do the casual light wheeling where you might just need a straight pull forward or up an obstacle, I could see this being viable. It's stout enough, at least the cylinder section. I just don't know if you are okay with being winched almost 90 degrees off to the side, but I also don't know how I feel about using the winch and running the line underneath the rig to pull yourself backwards, because sometimes you might need to do that in snow or other situations. Those are rare and hard to find, and I am pretty sure most people don't even find them in situations where being pulled a complete 90 degrees from the front is necessary, unless you're doing hairpin turns on snow-capped mountains. And even then, it's still rare, and this is more than enough bumper for a lot of people in a lot of situations. I think this is a good bumper for that. I don't think this is a good bumper for a lot of heavy wheeling consistently. I think it's good. I don't think it's overtly built, and it's incredibly light. To be fair, I think you can really install this with one person, and I did install it with one person myself. It is, I think, under total like 70 pounds. It's under 75 pounds, and that's kind of also the reason why my 80 looks so much taller at the moment, because ARB bumper, I think, weighs twice as much as this, plus it has the front winch, which is around 70 pounds too. So you're looking at nearly like 100 pounds for the front bumper, and then added 75 pounds for the front winch. It's heavy. This is incredibly light. Even if you were to put a front winch, it is incredibly light. So all that being said, I really think this is a good bumper, but I just wanted to show what the actual look is. Again, the gap is there, and it is half an inch over here, getting closer to a quarter of an inch, and it is 3/16 over here, but gets further out. The entire front was, again, or at least the entire top plate was mounted on a very flat surface and then welded to the core. So this is a body to frame issue on my end, not a manufacturer or fabricator issue. Other than that, this is the entire NorthWest Trail Innovations bumper. A very simple look at it. I know I'm not on trail to actually show it off, but this is the bumper as it comes, or as it's finished, essentially. So I know this is different from the normal type of content that I produce on the channel, which is normal either straight fabrication on how I made this bumper, or adventure films / videos on me just going out with my friends, adventuring, going off-roading, and going to these cool places. This is entirely different from all of that. It's just a product spotlight on something I thought that was actually pretty cool, and wanted to give a shout out to a company that actually produces a simple, low profile, sleek bumper design that can actually take a winch and actually take a hit on most days from most normal vehicle impacts, because this is actually 3/16 and their bumper is actually 3/16, so almost analogous to 1-to-1. But I just wanted to give a spotlight on products like that. So if you guys actually like this type of content, please like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, be safe and tread lightly.